Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gina Che, and I'm here to inform you on how to prevent a sexual assault. Okay, I'm a sexual assault victim advocate, and I work for Department of Defense. Currently, I work for the soldiers and the family. Before we go into any detail, I want to ask you one question. Do you know what happens in the U.S. Every 98 seconds?
Yes.
Per Rape and Abuse and Incest National Network data, an American is being sexually assaulted. So if you really think about it, that's less than 2 minutes. There's a large numbers, and it can be anybody. So that's something to think about. So the purpose of this presentation is I want to inform you how to prevent sexual assault. So we're going to go over a definition of sexual assault. Per Department of Justice, sexual assault is defined as any non-consensual sexual act prescribed by federal, tribal, or state law, including when the victim lacks capacity to consent. And per Department of Department of Defense definition, it says sexual assault as intentional sexual contact characterized by the use of force, threat, and intimidation, or abuse of authority when the victim does not or cannot consent. So the key word here is consent, even though it's from different two organizations. It says if you cannot consent or you don't have ability to consent, that's what the important thing is in this definition. So since we learned about the definition of sexual assault, how do we prevent from happening, right? That's what we're going to talk about. So prevention is stopping something from happening before it happens, right? So number one, what we need to do is we need to know and follow the rules. So since we know what the sexual assault is, now we can actually look it up what the rule is and then follow the rule. Mm-hmm. Number two is to reduce threats. So to reduce threat, what we can do is we can have a safety plan. So for an example, when you go before you drive, you put seatbelt, right? When you go to sleep and you go into the house, you lock the door. That's a part of safety plan, right? Mm-hmm. So in a sexual assault, to prevent sexual assault, what we can do as a safety plan before you go on a date, you can have the safety plan as you let your friend know, hey, I'm going on a date with this person and this is the person's number. Or before you go on a trip, you can have a safety plan or etc. You can do many things, right? And what we can do as a parents, if you have kids, you can educate your kids how to respond when someone is pressuring to do something that you don't want to do. So it's a lot of things that we can do to prevent. Lastly, I'm going to talk about intervene, right? Intervention is, intervention is something that you do after something happens to improve the situation, right? So, anybody can intervene. So if you see a person in the street drunk, right, and he's by themselves, even though you don't know the person, you can go up to them and pretend like you're the person's friend if you see a predator reaching for the person, or you can get someone else and say, hey, do you mind helping me, and then intervene to make sure that person is safe, right? So who is responsible to prevent this? I believe everybody's responsible because sexual assault can happen to anyone. Like we talked about, per RAINN data, one American person is being assaulted every 98 seconds, right? And they said every 8 minutes is a child. So it is a very unfortunate situation. But I believe that if we make more efforts and then, pay a little more attention, we can help to reduce these unfortunate crimes. So, everyone is responsible to stop the crime. These are the references that I had for Department of Justice and RAINN, and also Department of Defense, Sexual Harassment and Assault Response, and Prevention Program website. So if you want to look up what I actually annotated on the slides, you can look it up. So this concludes my presentation, and thank you for being here and listening. And these are my audience for the
Good
presentation.
Good job.